Hello everyone! Today we're going to be making scrambled eggs, the small curd and large curd. And the two variations are just, we're keeping the ingredients the same except for one component, and then we're going to be cooking them differently for different amounts of time. So for this experiment, I'm going to be using water as a variable to test, and I'm going to be using water and putting it inside of the small curd scrambled egg mixture to see how it would affect the taste and the presentation of the My hypothesis for the variable testing is that the water is going to allow for the small curd to be puffier because the water is going to allow for the scrambled eggs to steam in the pan. So let's get started with our ingredients. Our ingredients, we have, I only had these. These are actually older eggs, which are fine when we scramble eggs. And I have 2 grade A large eggs for each recipe. I have water for the small curd one. I'm going to be using salt, pepper, and butter. And for our cooking space, we have an electric burner and a nonstick pan. And when we cook the eggs, we're going to actually have the pan heat up first because there's micro crevices in the pan. So when you heat up the pan, the metal actually expands, so the egg will cook before it actually steeps into the pan, which is great for our scrambled eggs. So we have the ingredients right here. I've kept them the exact same measurements except for the water so that we can see how water really affects the way the smaller curd is cooked and the taste overall. So I've got 2 eggs, and then I've got salt, pepper, and then this butter here will be used for the pan, and I'm going to whisk them. But before that, we can see that the egg whites here, when they're raw, they are completely clear, and that's because they're a natural protein. They don't actually become white until we introduce heat to them, because that will then denature the proteins and then break the bonds across the spring that will allow for a 3D structure and for those bonds between the proteins to link together, therefore causing a coagulation and making the egg whites white in color once cooked on the pan. So let's get see here, after stirring, the one on the right is the one with the water, and it has a less yolky or less orange color, and that's because the water has diluted it. And an interesting fact is that the yolk actually is 75% of the calories from the egg, but it only makes up for 1/3 of the weight. We have our pan heating at medium heat, and we're doing it at medium heat and not a high heat is because you just want it the right temperature for it to coagulate, because the higher the temperature and the longer you leave it on the pan, it is going to make the eggs more leathery and more dry, because the longer the heat is introduced and the higher the heat, it tightens those bonds between the springs, and it just leads to an undesirable texture and taste. Starting with the small curd eggs, I've put the butter on here, and we're going to let the butter heat up along with the pan for it to heat up even more so that we have a less sticky pan. The reason why we put salt in the recipe is because salt actually interferes with coagulation, because it interferes with the negative charges along R groups in the protein so that they no longer repel each other, which is a very interesting fact. So I have the mixture from the small curd in, and I'm just going to mix more because the smaller the curd means you have to mix more frequently while the heat is cooking the egg. And then we'll be back to see the results. These are our eggs after we finish stirring, and you can see that it was a lot more watery when I mixed it. You can see that it's a lot more fluffy than the traditional one because of the water. So I've put butter in the pan again at medium heat, and we're gonna start on our large curd. Large curd recipe, we are minimally stirring, and we're going to kind of scrape the eggs once we see a little bit of cooking done, and then we're gonna take it off the heat for about 1 minute and then put it back on, and then scrape it, and then just keep repeating it until it slowly finishes cooking. And then once it's about done, I'm gonna turn off the heat and then just let it rest, because the heat still cooks the eggs afterwards. We do not need the heat after, because we don't want to overcook our eggs and make them leathery and dry. See here that the eggs are still kind of runny right here, but I've turned off the heat so that they can just cook with the remaining heat on the pan. And you can see that the curds right here are much larger than the small egg curds right here, because we did not stir this one as much, and we kind of just scraped it and like folded it at times, and then we took it off the heat during 1 minute intervals, which helped with not overcooking the eggs so that we can get these large curds. Hey guys, I just tried both of the eggs. So we have the small curd and the large curd eggs, and I would say if you preferred a like softer, more fluffy egg, this is a lot better. But me personally, I liked it more dense when I ate the large curd. And I liked how the large curd, it was like the bigger pieces. I prefer that over the small curds, the smaller pieces. And one thing that I wish I did try was adding cream to one of the recipes, because I know that adding milk or cream will essentially make the eggs taste more flavorful. But I'll keep that in mind for more experiments in the future. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.